The alarm went off at 4:45. Nick turned it off quickly so as not to wake Danny. The screen on the nightstand flashed a reminder. Marissa's trip, Flight C-705. He stood up, threw on a sweatshirt, went into the kitchen, and turned on the coffee maker. The house was quiet. The kitchen window looked out onto the empty street. A school calendar with blue circles around baseball practices hung on the refrigerator. Marissa came downstairs, adjusting the strap of her duffel bag. Her hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and she wore light makeup. She looked put together, almost too much so. "Did you take my charger?" she asked in a whisper. "In the top pocket, I checked." "Are the tickets on your phone?" "Yes, and the presentation is in the cloud." She opened the cabinet and poured herself some water. "Thanks for the ride. A taxi at this time of year is always an adventure." "No problem," Nick said. "It's 20 minutes to the airport. Are you sure about breakfast?" "I'll get some yogurt at the airport." She took a sip of water and looked at her watch. "We need to leave in 15. Nick placed a lid for her coffee cup in front of her to take with her. On the table was a note for Danny. "Mom's in meetings, be back Friday. Love you." Next to it was a card for early morning camp before school started, in case Nick was delayed on the highway. "I'll put this on the kitchen island for him to see," Nick said. "He wakes up at 7. "Okay," she nodded. "I'll be back late Friday evening. If I'm delayed, I'll write." Nick nodded. He gave her a brief, familiar hug. Marissa was a little tense in his embrace, like before a presentation. He chalked it up to getting up early. The drive to the airport was smooth. They listened to the morning news in hushed tones. Marissa checked her email. At the terminal, she turned to face him. "Thanks. Don't expect a call until lunch. We have back-to-back meetings. I'll text you when I get in a taxi in Seattle." "Good. Good luck." She leaned over, brushed her lips against his cheek, and a minute later vanished through the departure doors. Nick remained on the landing strip and stared at where she had disappeared for a few seconds. Then he pulled back onto the highway. By 7:50, he was home and making pancakes Saturday's recipe, even though it was Tuesday. Danny woke to the smell of vanilla. "Mom's not here?" he asked sleepily, sitting down on a high chair near the island. "She's gone to work. See you on Friday." Nick handed him a plate. "The powdered sugar and syrup are in the cupboard." "Can I have 2 pancakes?" The boy's eyes lit up. 3 is possible. They joked about their science homework and how the coach would forget the cones again at the baseball game. Nick dropped his son off at school, stopped at the gas station, and was back in his office parking lot by 9. At work, there was a meeting with the project team. Nick was a senior engineer and used to staying focused. They were going through final tests of a new build. The conference room smelled of marker and coffee. Andrew, a friend and colleague, placed a box of donuts on the table. "Were you already on the move at dawn today?" Andrew asked. "To the airport. Marissa has flown away." "Seattle?" "Yes." "Well, good luck with the rain," Andrew chuckled. "There'll be a test report by this evening. Will you take a look?" "Certainly." By lunchtime, Nick texted Marissa briefly. "How was your flight?" An hour later, she replied, "Landed." Diving back into work. "I'll write later." Everything seemed normal. He returned to his tasks, checked the log files, and signed off on the equipment requisition. At 5 o'clock, he picked up Danny from after-school care and stopped at the store for milk and bread. At home, they stacked Lego on the carpet and ate pasta for dinner. At 9, Nick texted again. "How was your day?" The reply was strange. "I'll tell you tomorrow. I'm tired. It's a different time zone here. Everything's out of sync." He glanced at the screen. Seattle was 2 hours behind, no more. It seemed like a small thing, but he remembered it. Before bed, he went into his office and checked his email. An airline newsletter with offers for Mexico had arrived at the family's shared address. He ignored it. He closed his laptop and lay down. That night, he woke up to his phone blinking. Love. Sleeping. Later. He typed OK and rolled over. Wednesday morning started quietly. Nick dropped Danny off and went to work. At 10, he needed a slide he'd made with Marissa a couple of months ago. He texted her, "Need the March version of the presentation. Can you send me the link?" She replied, "In a meeting, later." Half an hour later, he decided to rummage through her shared folder himself. Not out of curiosity, just to make it quicker. He opened Marissa's calendar, which they shared for family logistics. It was labeled Meeting Seattle, but there were almost no slots with specific addresses. In the past, she'd usually at least left company names. At 11, an automated email arrived that he'd almost deleted. "Out of office, Marissa." He stopped and reread it. "I'm on vacation until Friday. I'll reply to everyone on Monday." He reread it again. The sender was their company's corporate system. Vacation until Friday. He looked at the date. It was correct. He opened their family chat and scrolled through Marissa's messages. Meetings, schedule is packed, different time zone. He felt his chest tighten, but forced himself to breathe evenly. He called Andrew and asked him to come out to the parking lot. "What happened?" Andrew asked as they reached the coffee stand. "Look," Nick said, pointing to the out-of-office message on the screen. "Is this a joke?" Andrew narrowed his eyes. "Maybe she set up an auto-reply for everyone except the executives. It's a corporate system. It doesn't like fiddling with settings. Okay? What did she write to you?" "What about the meetings?" Nick spoke calmly. "I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I don't like this." They stood in the shadows. Andrew didn't joke. He simply said, "Let's get back to the tests. You've kept your mind busy during the day, and you'll figure it out in the evening. And don't do anything out of anger. That's important." "I know." At home, Nick checked his email. Among the bank notifications was a transaction on their joint card. Grand Fiesta Americana, Los Cabos, $1,248.36. He didn't immediately realize what he was looking at. Then he opened the card. Mexico. Hotel. The amount looked like it would cover several nights' stay. He sat down and took a deep breath. After a minute, he took a screenshot and placed the phone face down so he wouldn't have to look at the numbers. He called Andrew. "My statement says a hotel in Los Cabos," Nick said evenly. "Whose card is it?" "Our usual." "Shared." "Damn," Andrew paused. "Nick, stop. No phone calls or scenes. You'll regret it later. You have a child. Think about what's right." "I won't call." Nick stood up, went to the kitchen, and poured some water. "I want to know where she is." "There's Find My iPhone," Andrew said cautiously, "but it's a delicate matter. We have family access. We set it up for Danny. We've helped each other out 100 times." Nick opened the app. "I'll just take a look and then close it." The screen refreshed. A green dot somewhere along the coast, captioned, "Marissa's iPhone Cabo San Lucas." He didn't react outwardly. He simply glanced at the refrigerator, where a baseball calendar hung. Then he turned off the screen. At that moment, the lock in the hallway clicked. Danny returned. He was accompanied by his neighbor, Mrs. Harper, who had given him a ride after the club. "Hey, Nick," she said. "They were late for the competitive games today. Your guy scored twice." "Thanks for bringing it," Nick said. "We're doing well." When the door closed, Danny took off his sneakers and looked into the refrigerator. "Do you have ice cream?" "Yes, but first, homework." "Oh." They sat down at the table. Nick checked his math problems and helped him with his reading. He kept his son in front of him and tried to keep to the daily routine. After dinner, they watched 20 minutes of cartoons, and Nick put him to bed. Only when the house became quiet did he pick up his phone again. There was a new message from Marissa. "It's been a rough day. Tomorrow will be easier. How's Dan?" He replied. "Everything's fine. He scored twice. When's your window?" No response came. Nick turned on his laptop and opened his notes. He began writing. Tuesday. Departure 7:05. Message at 1:12 p.m. landed. 9:47 p.m. different time zone. Wednesday. 11:03 am out of office. 6:20 p.m. Los Cabos hotel transaction. 6:40 p.m. phone location Cabo San Lucas. He didn't write conclusions, just facts and times. At 9:40, he called his mother, briefly told her everything was fine, and turned the conversation to Danny. He didn't want discussions or advice right now. He was calm, but inside, a plan was already forming. Tomorrow he would talk to a lawyer. Calmly. No drama. He wouldn't ruin his son's life. He would play by the rules. Before going to bed, he went into Danny's room. The boy was asleep, his nose buried in a soft pillow with a baseball pattern. Nick adjusted the blanket and left, closing the door quietly. The phone blinked again. From Marissa came, "I'm fine. Don't worry. I'll hug you on Friday." Nick looked at these words and put the phone on the table. They were the right words, but now they were empty for him. He turned off the light in the living room and sat on the edge of the sofa. The room was quiet. Tomorrow he would take action. Today just sleep. He lay down and closed his eyes, like a man with a child and a workday ahead. Rows of numbers, times, and addresses scrolled through his head. He forced himself to think about the shopping list, the test report, the practice on Thursday. He didn't make excuses or argue mentally. He put it all off until the morning. Nick woke up at 3 in the morning for no apparent reason. The house was quiet, a street light flickering in the window on the corner. He lay there for a minute, trying to get back to sleep, but his head was already racing. He got up, threw on a sweatshirt, and went to the kitchen. He poured water and sat down at the table where he'd left the printout of his list the day before. The white sheets of paper with the items looked like a routine manual, calm and dry. It helped. He opened his laptop and added another note. Friday. Meeting with Victor, confirm time. Then he put the laptop away and simply sat, listening to the refrigerator. His thoughts naturally pulled him back to those small incidents he hadn't noticed then. 6 months ago, in November, Marissa returned from the annual sales conference. She brought Danny a Seattle team cap and some chocolates. That evening, they sat on the couch, and she talked about how their department finally had a leader who understands the market. A name slipped out, Eric. Nick asked where he came from, and she answered curtly, from another company, strong but not overly harsh. At the time, it sounded like a workable detail. A month later, he noticed she was increasingly staying late after 8 to answer calls. European clients, she explained, pushing dinner off. Sometimes she'd go into the bedroom, close the door, and ask him to be quiet. This, too, seemed like a workaday idea. In December, a week before Christmas break, she skipped Nick's parents' annual party, citing a deadline. Nick went alone with Danny. His mother said in the kitchen, rinsing glasses, "Don't let him work himself to death. It's the end of the year for everyone." He nodded. In January, they got a new almond milk in the fridge. Marissa suddenly decided to put away the regular one. The nutritionist recommended it. "I'm a bit tired," she explained. Nick didn't argue. There was a new bottle of perfume on one of the bathroom shelves. He noticed its scent on her scarf, fresh, barely perceptible. He said, "It smells different," and she smiled. "I got it from work." He didn't think much of it. In February, Marissa started going to the gym at 6 in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It was convenient. Nick would be making oatmeal, waking Danny up, and driving him to school. They split their mornings, and the house began to run like clockwork. One day, he found her towel and a black hair tie in the car. Nothing special. But today, those items floated in his mind like markers. Life had changed slightly back then, and he hadn't quite grasped it. Nick opened a kitchen drawer and pulled out a small paper bag. It contained the receipts he was about to enter into the spreadsheet. Among the supermarkets and gas stations, he found a receipt from a coffee shop near Marissa's business center. The date was a month ago, early morning, 2 large lattes and 2 croissants. He looked at it and put it back in the bag. The receipt proved nothing and by itself meant nothing. But in his mind, these little details lined up. At 4, he returned to the bedroom, lay down, and finally fell into a deep sleep. His alarm woke him. He turned it off immediately. He didn't want Danny to wake up to the alarm. The morning flowed as usual. Nick made avocado toast for himself and pancakes from a boxed mix for Danny. His son arrived in his pajamas, rubbed his eyes, and sat down in a chair. "Dad, Mom promised to bring me some airplane stickers," he said, spreading syrup. "I'll remind her." "Good idea," Nick replied. "We'll pick up some new socks for the uniform after school today. Yours are already barely fitting." "Can I have some lightning pictures? Let's see what happens." Getting ready passed without a rush. In the car, Danny was discussing a game with a classmate over voice chat. Nick listened to the chatter as background noise, catching the normality in it. They stopped at the crosswalk in front of the school. Danny took off his headphones. "Dad, is Mom coming on the tour on Friday? Marta said her mom is coming too." "I don't know," Nick said honestly. "She's on a work trip. Maybe she won't make it." "Okay." Danny nodded, but looked disappointed. "Then will you come? We can have one adult." "I'll come." He kissed his son on the top of his head, waited for him to cross the playground, and then drove to the office. The drive took 20 minutes. Local radio was playing in the car, the anchor joking about the latest sports drama. Nick found himself finding it easier to listen to other people's unimportant conversations than to dwell on his own. In the parking lot, he checked his email. There was a reply from Victor. "Nick, hi. Mike said you could reach out. I can do it today at 11:30 a.m. via Zoom or tomorrow at 8 a.m. in person in my office. I get the idea. Let me know which is more convenient." Nick, without hesitation, chose video calling today. He wrote, "11:30 is convenient. Thanks." He timed it, he'd make it before the lunch meeting. At 9, he had a short meeting with the team. They were discussing how to fix a bug with incorrect date handling. Nick proposed a simple solution, distributed the tasks, and asked Andrew to look at the logs if he was free. Andrew said, "Sure," and stayed behind when the others left. "You're gray today," he remarked quietly. "Have you eaten?" "I have a consultation at 11:30. "Okay, I'll cover. Thank you." At 11:25, Nick closed the office door, put on his headset, and opened the Zoom invitation. Victor Stanton appeared on the screen, a man in his late 50s, with an upright posture, graying temples, and a neutral expression. He spoke evenly, without emphasis. "Nick, good afternoon. Nice to meet you. I see you want to understand how to act carefully." "Yes," Nick said. "My goal isn't to punish. My goal is not to ruin my son's life and not to make any mistakes." "That's a sound approach." Victor glanced back at the documents for a second. "Give me the facts, no judgment. What do you know today?" Nick briefly described vacation auto response, Los Cabos hotel transaction, phone location, messages where she wrote about meetings. He added that he hadn't told her anything yet. "It's good you didn't say anything," Victor nodded. "First, don't delete anything, don't change anything, don't hack anything. Keep everything you already have. Second, with a child, only calm, neutral information appropriate for their age. Third, when she returns, suggest a conversation with the phones turned off, without accusations, with clear boundaries. Temporary separation is beneficial for everyone. Fourth, finances. We need to take stock of accounts and agree on a temporary budget. Fifth, don't enter into discussions with her colleagues and management. That will only complicate things." "I'm not going to Eric," Nick said. "It won't help." "That's right." Victor leaned closer to the camera. "In our state, there's no requirement to prove fault in a divorce. But the truth is still important for the psychological part. A mediator will make things easier. I can recommend a couple of calm specialists. And one more thing." He paused. "You have the right to ask for transparency about time spent with the child and their movements when he's with her. No control, just a schedule and availability." "Thank you," Nick exhaled. "I wrote it down." "And one last thing. Don't put off the conversation longer than 2 or 3 days after she gets back. Otherwise, excuses and silliness will start. Better to keep it short and sweet. If necessary, I'll join the mediation call later." They said goodbye. Nick took off his headset and sat in silence for a few minutes, feeling a plan and its pillars forming within him. He didn't feel relief, more like clarity. Half the people in his life, if they knew the truth, would have advised him to give it to him. He didn't want that. He had a son and a job, and that set the tone. For lunch, he went down to a small diner across the street. They served soup of the day and sandwiches. He ordered chicken soup and half a tuna sandwich and sat by the window. People around him were discussing quarterly bonuses, football, and gas prices. Nick took out a notepad and rewrote what Victor had said, bullet points. At the bottom of the page, he added, "Telling Marissa I won't forgive doesn't mean I will seek revenge. I won't live a lie. I will maintain respect. I will take care of Danny." He looked at that sentence and realized that this was exactly how he wanted to speak without making big words. After lunch, there was a call with the testing team, then some minor tasks, and one email to suppliers. The day dragged on smoothly. He managed to maintain the pace. At 4, he left early to pick up Danny and also pop into a sportswear store. The mall was bustling. Hairbands, water bottles, and protective gloves hung on the shelves next to baseball socks. Danny chose socks with thin zippers at the ankle and fiddled with the gloves for a long moment, like the big guys. Nick bought socks and a simple bottle, promising to get gloves by next week if you practice catching. At the checkout, the girl asked, "Want a bag?" and for some reason added, "Have a good game." It was the usual goodbye greeting, but Nick suddenly felt something twitch in his throat. He nodded and said thank you. At home, they did their homework. Then Nick suggested they make dinner together, baked chicken and potatoes. Danny peeled carrots, grimacing a little at the smell, but he managed. They ate while watching cartoons, and for the first time in a week, Nick felt like the house was truly alive. No phone messages, no strange smells, no warning bells. Before going to bed, Danny lingered at the bedroom door. "Dad, don't you fight with Mom?" he asked quietly. "I heard Jeff's parents yelling about the weekend trip. He didn't want to go to Dad's afterward." "I won't yell," Nick said. "Mom and I know how to talk calmly. Even if we have a difficult conversation, we'll still be your parents. That's the main thing." "Okay." Danny nodded, clearly accepting the answer. "Good night." Good. Nick sat on the edge of his living room sofa. His phone lay silently beside him. He opened Find My iPhone, but stopped and closed it immediately. He wouldn't be able to use that button today. He pulled out a folder of documents: Danny's birth certificate, the mortgage deed, a list of bills. He sorted them into piles and took photos to send to Victor if needed. He returned everything to its place. Then he wrote Marissa a short note. "When you get back on Friday, we need to talk tonight after Danny's asleep. It's important. Let's do it at home, no phones." He sat with the phone in his hand for another minute, hit send, and put the device down. There was no reply. At 10 o'clock, Kate, Marissa's friend, called. Nick rarely spoke to her directly. He saw the name on the screen, hesitated, but answered. "Nick, hi, it's Kate. Sorry it's late. Are you okay? Is Danny sick?" She spoke a little faster than usual. "It's fine," Nick said. "What?" "Marissa wrote to say she's had a rough week, asking how my boys are. I thought maybe you needed something. I can pick up Danny from school tomorrow if you're busy." "Thank you. We have everything under control." Nick paused. "Kate, when Marissa gets back, she might want to stay with you for a while, if that's okay with you." "Of course," Kate said without hesitation. "She's my friend and your family. Do what you have to do. Call me if you decide anything." The conversation was short, businesslike, and calm. Nick hung up, realizing he'd taken another small, practical step. No scenes, no tears, no questions about why. He'd simply prepared an alternative in case this would be better for everyone. He turned off all notifications for the night, leaving only calls from school. He lay down, but couldn't sleep. Then he began reshuffling his thoughts again. Danny's explanation Sunday, the excursion Friday, I'm with him. The conversation with Marissa, no emotion. Marissa's things don't touch. He repeated these points like a short instruction before starting the system. It was his way of avoiding succumbing to irritation and starting to construct scenes with lines he'd later want to take back. Thursday began without a fuss. Nick woke up at 6, put the kettle on, and took waffles out of the freezer. Danny loved them. The kitchen smelled of cinnamon and toast. A notepad list lay on the table. Documents collect and print, meeting Victor, school confirm excursion, work close tickets by date. He went through the lines calmly, as if going through a checklist for a launch. "Dad, can I have syrup and strawberries?" Danny asked, pulling off his pajama top. "Sure, and add some yogurt," Nick replied. "We'll pick up some stickers after school. Remember?" "Yes," the son smiled. They ate, packed their backpacks, and checked their training uniforms. In the car, Danny explained that the class would be making a model volcano. Nick played along with questions. How much vinegar? Will there be food coloring? How can I avoid spilling on the table? Routine topics helped. By 9 o'clock, several emails about the release had already accumulated in the office. Nick was assigning tasks, checking logs, and coordinating the transfer of one fix. Andrew walked into the office and placed a container of homemade cookies on the desk. "My wife baked too much," he said. "Save us." "I'll pass the baton to the team," Nick nodded. "At 11, I'll disappear for a couple of hours." "I can guess where." Andrew sat on the edge of the table. "Listen, if you need a day off tomorrow after the tour, take it. I'll close the daily and the report." "Thank you. I'll take the afternoon tomorrow. I have a conversation in the evening." "I understand. And one more thing." Andrew lowered his voice. "If you need HR resources consultations for employees, you can ask Lee. It's confidential." "Okay," Nick said. He wasn't sure he wanted to see the corporate psychologist, but he made a note. At 10:40, Nick gathered up the folder. A copy of Danny's birth certificate, bank statement printouts for the month, a mortgage, a list of bills, a draft of Friday conversation. He went out to the elevators, wrote Danny a quick, "Have a nice day," and drove to Victor's office. Victor's office was in an old two-story building next to the library. The parking lot was empty. Inside, there was a clean counter, a sofa, and licenses and certificates hanging on the wall. The secretary offered water. Nick sat down, leafed through a folder, and checked he hadn't brought anything unnecessary. A couple of minutes later, the door opened and Victor nodded. "Walk through." The office was austere. A desk, two chairs facing each other, a filing cabinet, and no unnecessary decoration. Victor pointed to a chair. "Good to see you in person. Let's go over this in more detail. First, the framework. You're committed to a peaceful settlement if there are signs of infidelity. The goal is to protect the child and ensure transparency, right?" "Yes." "Then I'll suggest a step-by-step approach. Step 1 is conversation. Tone, facts, no insults. It's important to make it clear you know enough not to argue over trivial matters, and propose separation during the mediation period. I'll give you a template for a short confirmation letter after the conversation. It will formalize the agreement, but without legal threats." "Okay." Step 2, finances, Victor said, placing a simple spreadsheet on the table. "A temporary budget for 2 to 3 months. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, childcare expenses. Do you have a joint account?" "There is a general and separate salary account, but many expenses go through the general account. During the break, it makes sense to set up an operating account for household expenses, into which you both make fixed contributions. This reduces the stress of who paid what. I'll prepare a distribution template. Any large expenses must be agreed upon via email or chat, where it can be saved." "I understand. I don't want to hide anything or argue over every receipt." "Right." Step 3, the child. Joint custody by default. A simple schedule at first, half a week or 2 to 3 weeks, depending on school and activities. We factor in baseball, field trips, and parenting classes. Do you and Marissa live in the same neighborhood? Yes, and we take our son to the same school. Okay, You and she only share a neutral fact with a school. The parents are temporarily living separately. Contact numbers are such and such, no details. If you have a school psychologist, you can get some general guidelines for talking with your child from them. I was thinking of talking to a consultant, without giving any reasons. That makes sense. Victor wrote down the school psychologist's name on a piece of paper, if Nick knew it. Nick dictated, Mrs. Ellis. Call today or tomorrow, make an appointment for next Tuesday. Let him see how the child is coping with the changes. Okay? Step 4, safety and boundaries. No visits by Eric to your home. When Danny is with his mother, his address is known and his phone numbers are accessible. Adult meetings between Marissa and Eric are not to be in the presence of the child. These are your legitimate expectations, and they need to be communicated directly but calmly. I'll say so. And one more thing, Victor raised his eyes. You asked about the right to the truth. You have the right to ask for a confession, but you don't have the right to demand details. Details only hurt. You need an understanding of the facts, a timeline, and plans for the future. Ask for that. If she says, this happened, I'll end it, it's your choice what to do. If she says, we'll be together, it's the same. I don't recommend making a will, I come back decision right now. Safety, the child, the schedule, the finances come first. Emotions will catch up, but you need to act in the right order. I'm not going to get into the details, Nick said, pushing the folder away slightly. I need clarity and boundaries, and for Danny not to end up in an adult game. Then you have a good chance of getting through this without a fight. Victor pushed another sheet of paper forward. Here's a list of documents that will be useful later. Statements, tax returns, a list of assets, contracts. You already have some. Then I'll assign a mediator to choose from. They'll calmly guide couples through the division of property and the schedule. And one more thing. After our conversation on Friday, write me a letter. What was agreed upon, what wasn't. If there's a risk, I'll get involved quickly. Thank you. Payment is hourly, as we agree. But don't worry, I won't count every call by the minute if I need a quick point of reference. Victor smiled briefly, without pressure. Your manner is collected. That's rare in these situations. Stick to it. Nick nodded. He asked a few clarifying questions about the mediation process and temporary agreements, so as not to make it seem like the divorce is already decided. Victor explained that a temporary order wasn't a death sentence, but a way to ease the tension. Victor shook his hand on the way out. A short letter on Friday after our conversation. You'll succeed. Nick stepped outside and breathed in the cool air. He got into his car and sat in silence for a few minutes. Then he drove to the nearest printing center and made copies of the budget spreadsheet and the confirmation letter template. Everything was organized in a folder, organized by section. He felt not relief, but stability, knowing what to do next. On his way to the office, he called the school office and asked to speak to Mrs. Ellis. Hello, this is Nick Morgan, Daniel Morgan's dad from Class 3B. I'd like to schedule a quick consultation on communicating with your child when the family routine changes, he said. Of course, Mrs. Ellis replied in a calm, professional tone. We can meet on Tuesday at 8:30 before school starts. It will take 30 minutes. Is that okay with you? Yes, and one more thing. The class has a field trip tomorrow. I'll be accompanying them. Excellent. That's important to Daniel. A pause. If things change at home, predictability is key. We'll discuss that on Tuesday. Thank you. Nick returned to the office at 2. Andrew showed him the chart with the fixes. They closed 2 tickets, moving one to Monday. At 4, Nick texted Lee from HR. Do we offer EAP consultations if an employee needs a quick chat? The reply came quickly. Yes, 6 free sessions. Would you like to contact us? Not yet, I'll keep that in mind, Nick wrote. He wasn't sure he'd go, but the very fact of the option was reassuring. After work, he stopped at the stationery store with Danny to buy stickers. His son spent a long time choosing airplanes, dinosaurs, letters. He picked up a sheet of airplanes and a set of letters to label his water bottle. At the checkout, Danny handed over some money from his piggy bank old coins and a couple of bills. "These are mine, I saved them," he said proudly. "Okay," Nick agreed. "Next time I'll pay. You're a good boy." At home, Nick made pasta with tomato sauce. Danny glued the letters to the bottle, a bit crookedly, but he was satisfied. At 7, Nick sat down at the table and wrote a short template letter that he would send to Marissa after the conversation. Today we discussed 1. Temporary separation, 2. A 2-week schedule with Danny, 3. A budget for the period, 4. Communication rules. I confirm the agreement. I am ready to discuss it with a mediator. He didn't hit send, he simply saved the draft. Jenna called at 8. "Just a reminder, Mom wants to take Danny to the park for a couple of hours on Sunday," she said. "He'll be happy. How are you?" "Fine. Tell Mom to pick her up at 11 and drop her off at 2. And no talking to the kid." "Got it. Hang in there, brother. If anything happens, I'm here." "I know." At 8:30, a message arrived from Marissa. "I'll be flying in Friday afternoon. Can you pick me up, or should I drive myself?" Nick read it and typed a reply. "Myself. We have a tour in the morning and things to do during the day. We'll talk at home tonight." He deleted the phrase, "we're talking." It was too abrupt, and sent what he decided was the message. "Myself. At home tonight." Okay came back. He put Danny to bed, read 2 chapters from a book about space, and turned off the light. In the living room, he laid out the folder again on the table. Budget, schedule, letter draft, documents. He placed a blank notepad next to it to jot down the results of the conversation. He put the pen in his jacket pocket. Before bed, he sat on the veranda with a mug of water. He didn't open the location on his phone or scroll through old messages. He wrote Victor briefly, "Ready? I'll confirm the results tomorrow." The reply came almost immediately. "Okay." Short and sweet. "Good luck." Friday started earlier than usual. Nick woke up at 5:40 to take his time before the school field trip. He put on water for the coffee, took pre-packaged sandwiches and apples out of the fridge, and checked his list. Signed permission slips, money for the souvenir stand, wet wipes, and an extra bottle of water. A comfortable jacket and a baseball cap for Danny lay on a chair by the entrance. "Dad, are we going to see the planetarium or just the exhibits?" Danny asked, appearing in the kitchen in a sweatshirt. "First the exhibitions, then the dome," Nick replied. "The teacher wrote that we have a slot at 11. They quickly ate their cereal, checked their backpacks, turned off the lights, and headed out to the car. The school was bustling, bells on backpacks, buses with the Science Center logo, parents and teachers chatting at the entrance. Nick found the teacher, Miss Garcia, handed over the signed consent form, and received the list of his mini-group: Danny, Martha, and the twins, Louie and Lenny. "Watch Nick and listen to instructions," Miss Garcia told the children. "Meet us at the main entrance at 12:20. On the way to the center, the children argued over who would be the first to try the hand-on-plasma device. Nick kept an eye on the way and joined the conversation, asking simple questions to relieve their excess energy. At the museum entrance, they passed a group of tourists, received bracelets, and Nick immediately led them to the hall with electricity. The children wandered off to the exhibits. Danny placed his palm on a glass globe. His hair lifted slightly, and he laughed. Louis and Lenny pressed buttons on a panel of light bulbs, watching the brightness change. Martha found a stand with a magnetic field and spent a long time moving iron filings under a transparent plastic cover. "One at a time and no pushing," Nick reminded. "If anyone moves away, tell me." At 10:30, they moved to the biology room. It was quieter there. Microscopes, organ models, screens with short videos. Marta lingered at the heart rate display, placed her finger on the sensor, and looked at the graph. "Mine was fast," she said, "probably because I was running." "It's fine," Nick said. "Everyone's faster after the stairs." By 11 o'clock, the group had moved into the planetarium. The lights in the dome were dimmed, and the children fell silent. Star charts slowly scrolled on the screen. The lecturer's voice explained how different constellations are visible at different times of the year and how the Earth's rotation works. Nick found himself breathing calmly and listening to himself. He sank a little deeper into his chair and let his mind simply follow the story. Danny quietly whispered, "There's Orion," and Nick nodded. After the planetarium, everyone went out into the lobby with the kiosk. The children were drawn to stickers and pins. Nick had arranged with the group beforehand. Everyone could choose one inexpensive item. Danny took a set of rocket stickers, Martha a microscope pin, and the twins each an atom keychain. Nick paid and pocketed the receipts. At 12:20, they returned to the main entrance and handed the children over to the teacher. It was sunny outside. Nick said goodbye to Miss Garcia, waited for the bus to pull away, and then headed to the car. He checked his phone. From Marissa came a message. "I'll be arriving around 3. I'll take a cab." No smiley faces, no unnecessary words. He replied, "Okay, we'll be home after 4. On the way, Nick stopped at the supermarket. Milk, eggs, bread, fruit. He also picked up some fresh flowers, simple tulips for the kitchen. Not as a gesture, but as part of everyday life at home. He returned, put the groceries away, poured water into a vase, and placed it on the island. Then he pulled out the printouts from the folder. An automatic reply from his email, a card transaction, a geolocation screenshot. He didn't want to turn the house into an office, but he understood that this was a conversation about reality. He folded the papers into a transparent folder and placed them in a drawer by the living room table, ready to retrieve them in the evening. Danny returned at 2:30, excited after the trip. He immediately started talking about experiments with liquid density, where a ball sinks in salt water and floats in fresh water. "Dad, can we make this at home too? We need salt and eggs." "We'll do it this weekend," Nick said. "We better go to bed early today. We have practice tomorrow." "Will Mom arrive before dinner?" "She should arrive by evening." Danny nodded and went to his room to apply new stickers. Nick took out his phone and texted Andrew, "Here's the plan. We'll talk tonight." Andrew replied a minute later, "I'm available if you want to just get some fresh air after." Nick put his phone on silent. Around 3:15, another text from Marissa arrived, getting into the car. Meanwhile, Nick was chopping vegetables for a salad and putting rice on the stove. He caught himself deliberately taking his time. The house should be in its normal state without any warning signs. He pinned the following week's schedule to the refrigerator: baseball, dentist appointment, parent-teacher conference. This was for both him and her. A child's life wasn't on hold. At 4:45, the door clicked. Danny rushed out into the hallway faster than Nick. "Mom!" he shouted and hugged her around the waist. "Hello, my dear," Marissa said, bending down to hug him. Her voice was soft but tired. She looked put together, dark jeans, a light sweater, her hair down. In her hands were a rolling suitcase and a bag. Nick walked into the hallway. "Hello," he said calmly. "Hello," she replied. A nod, a quick glance, and then she looked away to her son. "How was the tour?" "Cool. The planetarium, the stickers, the salt experiment." Danny spoke quickly, mixing everything into a single line. "Great," she smiled. "Shall we go to the kitchen?" They walked into the house. Marissa placed her suitcase against the wall and her bag on a chair. She glanced at the vase of flowers, the clean countertop, and the schedule on the refrigerator. Her gaze lingered briefly at the organizer on the shelf next to the TV, a plain plastic thing. But Nick noticed she'd marked it. He said nothing. They'd talk later that evening. For now, it was just normal life with a baby. "Do you want some water?" he asked. "Yes, thank you." Nick poured her a glass. She took a few sips and sat down on a stool by the island. "Are you hungry?" he asked evenly. "The rice is almost ready. There will be chicken and salad." "I'm a little hungry. I had a snack on the plane." Danny ran between the kitchen and his room, bringing stickers to show, telling her about the twins' keychains. Marissa nodded and asked questions. Nick set plates, stirred rice, and got out sauce. Everything happened as usual, but in the pauses between sentences, there was a lingering emptiness. Nick allowed it to exist. He didn't fill it with words. "How's your week been?" Marissa asked as Danny ran off to get his album. "Working," Nick said. "We're closing the release. Yesterday I went to see Victor Stanton. He's my cousin's legal counselor, and I asked about general rules for interacting with the child when the routine changes." She looked up, tension briefly flickering in her eyes. "Why?" she asked quietly. "So I don't misunderstand Danny," Nick said honestly and calmly. "We'll discuss it tonight. Now let's have a proper dinner with him." Marissa nodded. She took a sip of water and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She wore a thin chain on her wrist, something Nick hadn't noticed before. He noted it and set it aside. The three of them ate together. Danny told them what movie they were planning to show next week at club, urging them to don't forget the popcorn. Nick kept the conversation going, laughing at the right moments. Marissa tried to keep up the same tone. Occasionally, she caught Nick's eye, but he didn't hold it. He didn't want to exchange hints in front of the child. After dinner, Danny went to pack his backpack for training. Nick helped him find clean socks with zippers. "I'll put it on myself," Danny said proudly. "Okay," Nick replied. In the hallway, Marissa opened her suitcase and took out a small box. "This is for you," she said to her son. "A set of airplane stickers. I promised." "Cool," Danny smiled and hugged her. "Thanks." "I promised," she repeated and looked at Nick. He said nothing. "We're going to practice," Nick said. "We'll be back by 8. You rest and unpack." "Okay," she replied. "I'll make some tea." Nick nodded. He and Danny walked out to the car. The parking lot by the field was half empty. Danny ran to the group. Nick sat in the stands. Practice lasted an hour. Running, throwing, catching. During the break, Nick checked his phone, no new messages. He texted Andrew. "Back home by 8. No contact after that." Andrew replied, "Hang in there." On the way back, Danny chatted less he was tired. Nick turned the radio down low. Near the house, the boy yawned. "Dad, can I watch 20 minutes of cartoons and then go to bed? 10 and a shower are possible." Cold. In the living room, Marissa sat at the table with a mug of tea. Her suitcase was gone, and a slight noise could be heard in the bedroom upstairs she'd unpacked. The kitchen island was tidied up. She looked up. "How was training?" "Fine," Nick said. "Danny, a shower and 10 minutes of cartoons." "Okay," the son responded and ran upstairs. There was a pause in the house. The sound of the water turning on could be heard. Nick walked over to the cabinet next to the TV, pulled out a clear folder, and placed it on the edge of the table. Marissa looked at it, then at Nick. "What is this?" she asked, although the answer was obvious. "What I want to talk about tonight," Nick said. "Let's do it after he goes to bed." She nodded. Her hands rested on the table, her fingers intertwined. At that moment, in the silence, Danny could clearly be heard discussing with himself in the bathroom upstairs who would be the Batman in his comics that day. This mundane detail grounded her. "I can put him to bed," Marissa said quietly. "Okay," Nick replied. "Read one chapter, he's tired." Marissa stood up and walked past him. The scent of her new perfume was light, barely noticeable. Nick watched her go, thinking not about the scent, but about the 2 more steps, to put his son to bed and close the door to his room. Then their conversation would begin. While voices and the rustling of pages could be heard upstairs, Nick poured himself some water and set a pen and notepad on the desk to jot down the agreements. He cleared the desk of all unnecessary clutter, leaving only a lamp and a folder. He took the training calendar down from the wall, not removed it, but moved it nearby so it wouldn't strain his eyes. He didn't want the conversation to feel like an interrogation, but he did want no mundane details to interfere. The phone on the table blinked. A message from Kate. "Are you home? Everything okay?" Marissa said she was back. Nick replied curtly, "Home." We'll talk tonight. If anything happens, I'll text you. Kate sent okay. At 8:30, Marissa came downstairs. Her face was tired but calm. He fell asleep, she said. He said the planetarium was just like in a movie. Okay, Nick said. Have a seat. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table. The house was silent. The neighbors' cars drove by somewhere in the distance. Nick placed his hand on the cover of the folder, but didn't open it right away. Before we begin, he said evenly, I want to set the boundaries. We're speaking calmly. We don't intend to argue over theories. I have the facts, and they're enough. We have a son, and we need to agree on how we'll proceed. No phones today. I've turned mine off. You can do the same. Marissa silently took out her phone, pressed the Do Not Disturb button and put it face down and nodded. I'm listening, she said. Nick opened the folder. He arranged the papers in order, not for the theater, but to keep track of himself. The out-of-office auto-reply, the hotel checkout, the geolocation screenshot. He didn't push them toward her, just placed them in front of him. Let's begin, he said. Marissa sat up straight, her palms clasped, her gaze steady. Nick noted this and began calmly. On Wednesday, you received an automatic reply to your work email saying on vacation until Friday. Your general travel card statement said Grand Fiesta Americana, Los Cabos. Your phone's location showed Cabo San Lucas. You wrote that you were at meetings in Seattle. That's enough to tell me you weren't in Seattle. What matters to me now isn't the details, but the fact, the timing, and what we do now. She was silent for a while. Then she said, Yes, I wasn't in Seattle. I was in Los Cabos. Her voice was a little hoarse. With Eric. Nick nodded. He didn't look away. How long does this last? 6 months, she answered, since the end of autumn. Are you going to continue? She looked down at the table. I thought this trip was about closure. Her fingers tightened for a moment. That's how I explained it to myself. Like, to put an end to it. I know it sounds like an excuse. The fact is, I went there, and I lied to you about Seattle. Okay, Nick said. Thanks for being so direct. Next, we have Danny. I won't live a lie. Today, we're discussing boundaries and procedures. We'll be separating for a while. You'll move in with Kate. We'll work out a temporary schedule with Danny and a budget. No scenes. No back and forth recriminations in front of the child. She looked up. Nick, she said quietly, it's my fault. I don't expect you to understand. She paused, searching for words. I'm tired, stuck. Work, home, everything in a circle. Eric, it was like, new. I kept telling myself I was in control, and then it turned out I wasn't anymore. I don't want to hear about newness, Nick said firmly, but without harshness. I don't need it. I've heard the main points. Now, practical things. She nodded. Cold. Nick took a sheet of paper with the title Temporary Order out of the folder and placed it between them without pushing it. First, separate living arrangements for the next 2 or 3 months. You'll take the essentials today and move in with Kate. Tomorrow, or the day after, you'll pick up the rest of the items on the list when Danny is away with one of us. I don't want him to see boxes and fuss. Okay, Marissa said. I told Kate beforehand that I might ask her for a room. She knows. She doesn't ask questions. Okay? Second, Danny, on your marks 2, 2, 3. Nick scribbled a diagram on the sheet of paper. Monday, Tuesday, you. Wednesday, Thursday, me. Friday, Sunday, we take turns. We'll factor in his training and lessons. Transportation, whoever's on duty will drive. If anything changes, we text each other in advance. I made an appointment with Mrs. Ellis at school for a consultation on Tuesday morning. I'll come too, if that's okay, Marissa said. Or you go and then tell him how to talk to him properly. I don't want to hurt him. We'll go together if she agrees, Nick said. Third, finances. We'll temporarily open a separate operating account for living expenses and the child. Each person contributes a fixed amount. Here's a list of expenses. Larger expenses, we'll agree on them in writing. We'll leave the joint account alone for now, but we won't change the access rights or passwords. Transparency for both of us. I agree, she said without argument. Tell me the amount, and I'll calculate my share. We'll look at actual expenses after the weekend. Nick turned the page. Fourth, boundaries. Danny is not meeting Eric or anyone else in your personal relationships. No meetings in the presence of the child. The house is a neutral zone. When you're with Danny, I know the address and the time when you can be found. When I'm with him, the same thing. Yeah, Marissa nodded. I don't even want to think about dragging him into this. He's a kid. Fifth, work. I'm not going to your management. That's your business. But there's no talking about Eric in our house until we agree on a final status. And also, he's not allowed in here. I see. He didn't intend to. Okay. Nick paused for a second. Do you have anything else to add? She thought. About school, I'll write to Miss Garcia and let her know I'll be able to pick it up and drop it off Monday or Tuesday, and I'll ask that all notifications be added to my name. And she looked up. I'm willing to pay my share of the rent while I'm staying with Kate. I don't want you to carry this on your own. We'll work it into the budget, Nick said. Thank you. Marissa sighed as if gathering her courage. Nick, can I say a few words that aren't about order? Just briefly. Tell. You're a good father and a decent man. You didn't deserve such lies. She said this calmly, without theatrics. I'm not asking for forgiveness now. I understand that you chose a separate life. I'll accept it. A pause. It's my fault, and I still want us to be a team for Danny. For Danny, we'll be a team, Nick replied. That's the solution. But for the two of us, it's a different story. I won't forgive, and I won't seek revenge. I simply won't live in this construct. He said this evenly. We'll work it out peacefully through a mediator. I've already spoken with Victor. He'll send me a couple of options. She nodded, her lips trembling, but she held herself back. Okay? One more thing. Nick glanced at his watch. Sunday. My mom wants to take Danny to the park for a couple of hours. She'll pick him up at 11 and return him at 2. No talking in front of him. You can join her separately if you want, but it's best not to mix up the family days for now. Give him a sense of predictability. Let him go with Grandma. I'll pick him up this evening. She clarified, according to our schedule, this is my evening shift. For this week, yes, Nick said. I'll send you a spreadsheet for 2 weeks ahead. Fine. Nick glanced at the transparent folder. It contained a screenshot of the geolocation, a green dot over the coast. He paused for a second and then closed the folder. This image had no further relevance to their conversation. Now about Danny, he said. When and how will we tell him? Sunday night, Marissa suggested. After the park, at your place, together. No accusations. Like, sometimes parents live separately, but they're still parents. He's smart, he'll ask why. We'll say what the psychologists recommend, Nick said. That it's an adult decision and it's not his fault. That we love him. That he'll see us both, without reasons or judgment. If he asks directly, did you have a fight? We'll say that adults have difficult conversations, but we don't yell at each other. That's enough for him. Yes, Marissa agreed. I won't tell him about mistakes. It's not his burden. They fell silent. The silence was tense, but not aggressive. Nick felt his breath return. Short, clear steps taken, then fulfillment. Marissa was the first to break the pause. Can I stay in the guest room tonight, and then go to Kate's in the morning? I don't want to wake Danny up now and cause chaos with my suitcase. Stay in the guest room, Nick said. Don't lock the bedroom door. It's not out of control, just in case Danny wakes up in the night and comes to us. He usually comes to me, but it varies. Understood. And one more thing, Nick moved the notebook closer. You'll tell Eric that you're living separately and have a child, and that he shouldn't interfere with our schedule. I don't need him in our logistics. I'll tell him it's none of his business, she replied firmly. and that he won't see Danny at all. That's enough. She rubbed her temples with her palm. Nick, I know you don't want to hear about why, but I'll tell you one thing. I didn't leave you because you're bad. You're not bad. She stated it matter-of-factly. I lost my temper. I'm confused. But that's no excuse, and I'll have to live with the consequences. Nick nodded without commenting. He wasn't going to analyze the motives. What mattered to him were the steps. He put the notebook down and looked out the window. The courtyard was dark beyond the glass, a streetlight illuminating the path to the driveway. Nick returned to the matter at hand. Tomorrow morning, I'll take Danny to practice. I'll pick him up for lunch this afternoon. In the evening, he stays with you. You spend the night. Monday through Tuesday, you drive and pick him up. Wednesday through Thursday, I'll do it. Friday through Sunday, it's your turn this time. Then it's the same thing. I'll write it down. She took out her phone and looked at Nick questioningly. Write it down, okay? Just no chats now. I'll send you the spreadsheet later. She typed a calendar note and put her phone away. About things. I'll take the bare minimum today. Clothes for a couple of days, chargers, a makeup bag. The rest will be on Sunday afternoon when he's not home. I'll be here and help you move it. Or I'll stay out of the way as you say, Nick replied. She quietly said, thank you. Nick stood up, put the folder on the shelf, and returned. That's all for today. He looked her in the eye. Thank you for the straightforward answer. I appreciate that more than 20 explanations. I won't insult you, and I won't close the door to normal communication about the child. But we are moving towards a divorce. Peacefully, through mediation. I don't see any other honest path. She nodded. There were no tears. Her face remained composed, but the weariness became more pronounced. I understand, she said. I'll sign what needs to be signed, and I'll honor the agreement. Okay. Nick picked up the dirty cups and carried them to the sink. I'll go check on Danny. Upstairs, he quietly opened the door. His son was sleeping on his side, his nose buried in the pillow. A rocket pin lay on the nightstand. Nick adjusted the blanket and went out. In the living room, Marissa stood by the stairs with a small carry-on suitcase and a bag. I'll move it to the guest room, she said. I'll take a short shower and then go to bed. I'll go to Kate's in the morning. Okay, I'll be in the bedroom. If anything happens, knock. Fine. They parted without hugs, without any gestures that could be interpreted later. Each took their own area. Behind the wall, the sound of running water began. Nick turned off the lamp in the living room, checked the locks, and peered into the kitchen. A notebook with their daily tasks lay on the table. He closed it and put it in a drawer where Danny never looked. In the bedroom, he set the alarm for 7. On the nightstand lay a photograph, fall, pumpkins, 3 of them. Nick didn't turn the frame over. He left it as is. It was still a part of their son's life. The phone blinked an email from Victor. Success, write 2 paragraphs, what was agreed upon, where help is needed. Nick jotted down a short one. Separation for 2 to 3 months. 2-2-3 schedule. Operating account. No third parties and no child rules. Sunday conversation with son. She's moving in with Kate. Help. Mediator. Confirmation letter template. He sent it. I'll receive it and send you the mediator's contacts tomorrow morning. Nick turned off the sound, lay down, and for the first time in a week felt not relief, but clarity. The steps were known. The time was scheduled. It would be difficult, but manageable. He didn't peek into the guest room. He didn't need to see other people's tears or the lack thereof. Tomorrow would be a new day with simple tasks. Breakfast, exercise, shopping list, budget spreadsheet, a call from Mrs. Ellis, a message to Andrew about taking time off, and in the evening, a calm handover of his son. He closed his eyes and fell asleep quickly, without any thoughts swirling around him. He had a plan. Nick woke up at 7 without an alarm. The house was quiet. No sound came from the guest room. He tiptoed into the kitchen, turned on the coffee maker, and pulled out an omelet pan. A notepad lay on the table, and he ran his eyes down the day's list. Workout, bank, grocery list, moving Marissa's things, draft budget, Danny's evening show. Danny appeared in the kitchen in pajama shorts and immediately asked, "Can we get to the field early so I can warm up?" "We'll make it. Practice at 9, departure at 8:30, Nick said. "Omelet or toast?" "Omelet, with cheese." Nick was cooking when he heard footsteps behind him. Marissa entered, already dressed in jeans and a gray sweatshirt. "Good morning," she said. "Can I make some tea?" "Of course." Nick turned to the cupboard. "Tea on top." Danny looked at her carefully, as if checking to see how she was holding herself. "Are you going to practice?" he asked. "Not today," she answered calmly. "I'll unpack my things. Come see me this evening, and we'll look at your favorite panda." "Okay," he said. "I'll take a soft blanket." The three of them had breakfast without any tense topics. Nick reminded them about water, their uniform, and their cap. At 8:25, he and Danny walked out to the car. At the door, Marissa leaned over. "Good luck with your throws." "Thank you," he said and nodded. On the field, the coach gathered the kids in a circle. The parents sat in the stands. Andrew sent a text. "How was your night?" Nick replied. "Exactly, according to plan." A couple of minutes later, Andrew appeared in the stands with a paper cup of coffee. "I couldn't sit at home," he said, sitting down next to me. "Your boyfriend's leg started lifting higher, did you see?" "We were working on it," Nick replied. "I'll stop by the bank after practice today." "Are you opening an account?" "Yes, surgical. I'll send the chart later." Nick took a sip from his bottle. "Danny's going to Marissa's tonight. Tomorrow afternoon, she and I will pick up the rest. Without him." "Sounds like a grown-up plan," Andrew said. "If you need some fresh air after the bank, let's stop for a burrito." "We'll see about that in time." Practice proceeded smoothly. Danny hit a couple of balls, missed a couple, but tried again. Nick nodded, making the breathe and watch the serve gesture. The kids laughed, dust rising in a light cloud. The parents discussed the team's new jerseys and the date of the first game. After training, Nick patted his son on the back. "Good job. Let's go home via the bank." "Can I grab a candy bar on the way?" Danny asked. "Can." The bank was almost empty. The employee led Nick into the conference room. Danny sat down next to her and pulled out some stickers. "What would you like to open?" the employee asked. "A separate account for household expenses. Shared access, 2 debit cards. Plus online banking with notifications about debits," Nick said. "And set up automatic payments for utilities." The registration process took 20 minutes. Nick entered the general address, entered Marissa's contact information, and set a cash withdrawal limit. The cards were supposed to arrive by mail within a week. He immediately added the temporary virtual card to his phone and set up email notifications. "Done," said the employee. "Here's a printout of the details." "Thank you." In the car, Nick took a photo of the printout and sent it to Marissa. "The account is open. Cards will be ready next week. I'll upload the budget spreadsheet tonight." "Okay, thanks." At home, Nick made a weekly shopping list, drew a 2-2-3 chart for the 2 nearest circles, and printed it out large. He attached it to the inside of the hallway closet door, out of Danny's sight, but within easy reach of the adults. At 11, Marissa came down with 2 neat bags. "It's for a couple of days," she said. "Kate's home, I'll go straight to her. I'll be back tonight at 6. Tell me, what time should I pick up Danny?" "At 7. Dinner at 6, a shower, and then you're off," Nick said. "Today he'll take a blanket and a book about space. We'll pick up the rest tomorrow afternoon." "Okay?" She looked at Nick. "Kate said she could bring boxes if you need them." "No need, I have one." Nick pointed to the garage. "I'll put it in the hallway. You can take it tomorrow." Marissa nodded, picked up her bags, and paused for a second at the door. "Nick, thank you for keeping it cool." His voice was steady, just a statement. "It's for him," Nick said, nodding toward the ceiling where Danny's room was. She left. Nick exhaled. He didn't want to dramatize every doorway. He washed the dishes, turned on the washing machine, and put the chicken on to boil for soup. Meanwhile, Danny laid out his player cards on the floor by the bed, preparing his go-to-mom kit. At 1 o'clock, Nick took his son to the park for an hour. There was a playground with low climbing walls and swings. Danny climbed, talking about how his coach wanted to move him to third base next week. Nick sat on the bench, occasionally answering work messages, 2 quick log questions. He texted Andrew, "Closed 2 threads. We'll be in touch after 3 p.m. Andrew replied, "Okay, relax." On the way home, they stopped at the store for vegetables and bread. Danny chose a baguette, like the one in the school cafeteria. Nick smiled. "Okay, let's take like in the cafeteria." At home, Nick sat down at his laptop and opened the budget spreadsheet. In the first column, he entered the mortgage, utilities, insurance, and internet. In the second, groceries, gas, school lunches, baseball, clothing, and medication. In the third, unforeseen expenses. At the bottom, there were 2 fields, Nick's contribution and Marissa's contribution. He added a hint, review every 2 weeks. The amounts were approximate. They would be adjusted later. He sent the file to Marissa with a short message. "This is a draft. We'll confirm tomorrow after the first week." She replied a few minutes later, "Got it. I'll check with Kate and add more." Then she added, "I'll be there by 7. At 3:30, Mrs. Ellis called. "Mr. Morgan, we'll meet at 8:30 on Tuesday, as we agreed," she said. "Clarify, will you come alone or together?" "We'll come together," Nick replied. "We want to agree on our lines and approach before talking to Danny." "Good. And remember about predictability. In the first weeks, it's important for the child to maintain familiar rituals, breakfast, the commute to school, evening reading, and concrete words. It's not your fault. You're important to both of us. We're here for you," she said evenly. I wrote it down. "Thank you." After the call, Nick sat on the floor next to Danny. "Listen," he began, "today you're going to see Mom and spend the night at Kate's. She's her friend, you know her. Tomorrow afternoon, Mom and I will move things, and on Sunday evening the 3 of us will have a quiet talk. Any questions?" Danny looked at him seriously. "Are we going to live in 2 houses like Jake?" "It looks like it," Nick said honestly, "but you'll see us both. We're close." "Will baseball and school remain as they are now?" "Yes, nothing changes." Nick nodded at the schedule lying on the table. "Mom will take you on Monday, and I'll take you on Wednesday, as usual." Danny nodded and went to pack his backpack. He looked thoughtful, but not frightened. Nick noted this and decided not to overwhelm his son with unnecessary words that evening. By 6, Nick had prepared dinner soup and a baguette, and he'd sliced apples. Danny ate silently, then perked up, recalling a scene from Panda. Nick listened, interjecting briefly. At 6:50, the intercom rang. Nick opened the gate. Marissa stood on the threshold without a suitcase, with keys in her hand. "Hello," she said. "Ready?" "Yes," Nick answered. "Danny, a jacket and a blanket." Danny ran out and hugged Nick. "Shall I call before bed?" he asked. "Call. If I don't pick up, it means I fell asleep earlier, but I'll try." Marissa looked at Nick. "I'll bring him tomorrow at 1 o'clock, she said. "Then I'll come back for my things." "It's suitable." Nick handed her a bag with pajamas and a book. "I have Kate's address." "I'll write when we arrive," she said. "Not necessarily," Nick replied. "The main thing is if something happens outside the plan." They said goodbye. The car drove away. The house grew quiet. Nick cleared the table, started the dishwasher, and couldn't help but listen to the empty nursery. The silence there seemed new. He sat down at the table and finished writing a few lines in his notebook. Danny even, factual questions, Sunday talk. Then he grabbed his jacket and went for a short walk around the block. Neighbor Greg was watering the lawn and waved the hose. "Nick, is everything okay? Is your wife with your parents?" he asked casually. At a friend's, Nick answered calmly. We're changing our routine a bit. Everything's under control. Well, great. If you need to leave Danny with us for an hour, just say so. Thank you. Andrew called at 7:30. How did it go? According to plan. He's at Marissa's. I've made a budget and opened an account. I'll talk to him on Sunday. I respect that, Andrew said. If you want, I'll take you to the gym for an hour tomorrow at 9. No talking, just iron. Good idea. Write down the address. Nick returned home and packed a couple of old jackets and t-shirts into a bag they'd be useful as packaging for dishes tomorrow. He got flat boxes, tape, and a marker out of the garage. He labeled one books and another bathroom. He didn't want to run around with them in front of the child. At 9:15, a text came from Marissa. We're here. Let's watch a cartoon, then go to bed. All is well. Nick replied, have a nice evening. He turned on his laptop and opened his email. Victor had sent him the contact information for 2 mediators and a confirmation letter template. Nick filled in the names and dates and saved the draft. He wrote briefly, we'll schedule mediation on Tuesday after the school psychologist. Is next week okay? Victor replied. Yes. They take down the windows. At 10 o'clock, Nick took a shower and went to bed. The empty room felt strange, but he accepted it as a temporary arrangement. He picked up his phone and dialed good night to Marissa. A minute later, she replied, good night. Danny's asleep. Saturday began at the gym, where Andrew took Nick on his usual days. The room was spacious, with rows of dumbbells and the sound of footsteps on the rubber floor. Music played softly. Andrew handed Nick a bottle of water and waved him over to an empty station. Warm up for 5 minutes, then bench press and deadlift, he said. No records, just to get the body going. Got it, Nick replied. They worked in silence. Andrew demonstrated the technique. Nick repeated it slowly. Their pulse rose steadily, their thoughts stopped racing. On the 3rd attempt, Andrew said briefly, your head will be searching for why now. It won't find a decent answer. Stick to the plan. I'm holding on, Nick responded. After training, they sat on a bench by the window. Andrew handed Nika a protein bar. I'm talking to my son tomorrow, he said. You've got your lines ready. You can handle the tone. If you start to feel overwhelmed later, call me. I'll call, Nick nodded. Thanks for coming out with me. No questions. Nick stopped by the house, took a shower, and put the laundry on. At 11, he texted Marissa, I'll be there at 12:30. We'll start with books and a bath. Have Danny back by 1, I'll leave lunch for him. She replied, okay, he's had breakfast, let's pack our backpack. Kate lived in a townhouse 10 minutes away. The yard had a small lawn, and a pot of rosemary was on the porch. Marissa answered the door, immediately wearing jeans and a light t-shirt, her hair pulled back. Kate peeked out from the kitchen and waved. Hey, Nick. The boxes are in the hallway. I have tape and a marker. Thank you, Nick said. They started with the bookshelf. Nick was removing stacks of books, Marissa was wiping the spines with a dry cloth, and Kate was labeling the boxes. Non-fiction, novels, documents. The conversation was to the point. Put the dishes in one medium-sized container, don't overload them, Kate suggested. And it's best to separate out the first week section right away. I'll put together a set, a plate, a mug, a knife, Marissa said. Nick carried 3 boxes out to the car. As he returned, he heard Kate quietly say to Marissa, do you have a work plan? HR will ask questions. I understand, Marissa replied. I'll write to HR on Monday and ask for a transfer to another department. If that doesn't work out, I'll think about leaving. I don't want this to be in every email. Nick pretended not to hear. Inside, neither anger nor relief arose. He acknowledged the fact. Marissa understood the risks. Done, he said, placing the boxes on the doormat. Next round? The bathroom, Marissa nodded. Cosmetics, medicine, a hairdryer. They quickly sorted the tubes, labeling them daily and supply. Nick placed Danny's first aid kit, a thermometer, bandages, and cough syrup in a separate bag. "I'll leave a duplicate with you," he said, "so I don't have to lug it back and forth." "That's right," Marissa agreed. At 12:55, Nick's mom texted him. "We'll pick Daniel up at 11 tomorrow. Is that still on?" Nick replied, "Yes." At 1 o'clock, Marissa dropped off her son. Danny ran into Kate's kitchen with a backpack and a blanket. "Dad, I collected the comics. Mom and I watched Panda. It was funny." "Great," Nick said. "You have lunch in the container. Shall we go?" "Let's go." They returned home. Nick heated up the soup and sliced bread. Danny ate and told Kate how she had a cool wooden spoon in the kitchen and how her cat only lets you scratch him for 5 seconds. Nick listened, smiling. After lunch, Nick sat his son down with a book while he sat down at the budget spreadsheet. Marissa sent him her figures, gas expenses, car insurance, a portion of the utilities, and the amount she was willing to deposit into the operating account. Nick entered the data and added comments. At the bottom, he ticked "Review in 2 weeks." He sent the updated spreadsheet to Marissa. She replied, "I see. It's working. I'll make the transfer tomorrow." Mrs. Ellis called at 3. She confirmed the appointment for Tuesday and sent a short note. "Don't ask your child how are you feeling, but offer words like it's okay to be sad/angry/confused." Nick saved the note to the shared file. By 4 o'clock, Marissa sent a photo of her empty closet and a short message. "I'll pick up some clothes and a couple of boxes from the kitchen tomorrow." Nick replied, "I'll be home. Danny's at Grandma's then." On Saturday evening, Nick and Danny took a stroll to the nearby park. Teenagers were playing basketball on the court, and a family was grilling sausages on a portable grill on the grass. Danny asked them to stand by the goal and practice, throwing a tennis ball at a makeshift target. Nick held the box, and the boy hit every third shot. They laughed as the ball flew onto the track. "Dad, what's breakfast tomorrow?" Danny asked on the way back. "Pancakes or toast? Take your pick." "Pancakes." Agreed. Nick woke up once during the night and listened the house was quiet. He remembered he had to talk to his son the following evening and fell asleep again. Sunday started with pancakes. Danny helped mix the batter and sprinkled blueberries. At 10:50, Grandma arrived. She hugged her grandson, and Nick simply nodded and said quietly, "No discussion. I'll bring it at 2. "Thanks, Mom," Nick replied. After they left, Nick rolled the remaining flat boxes out of the garage and set them out near the kitchen and living room. At 11:30, Marissa and Kate arrived. Without further ado, they began gathering up the kitchen items: 2 saucepans, a frying pan, and an electric kettle. Kate carefully wrapped the glasses and goblets in paper. "We'll leave this half with you," Marissa said, gesturing to the knife set. "I'll buy myself a budget set at the store. There's no point in dividing everything down to the spoon." "I agree," Nick nodded. They reached the coat closet. Marissa grabbed a couple of coats, a warm jacket, and 2 scarves. The rest hung on hangers. "We'll deal with the shoes later," she said. "For now, I'll just take the boots." "Fine." They worked calmly and quickly. By 1 o'clock, 4 closed boxes, a bag of clothes, and a bag of cosmetics stood by the door. Marissa caught her breath. "That's all for today," she said. "The rest will come in a week, when we figure out what else is needed." "It will do." At 2, Kate left with the boxes. Around the same time, Grandma brought Danny home. He entered the house a little cautiously, glanced around the hallway, and noticed that there were fewer things. Nick sat down next to her. "See the boxes?" he asked calmly. "Mom and I are moving her things to Kate's. It's part of our new routine. This evening, we'll all sit down and talk." "Okay," Danny nodded. "I'll play in my room." Nick tried to maintain his usual routine during the day: homework, a short walk, and a snack. At 6, he set the table with chicken noodles and salad, and at 7, he cleared the dishes and made tea. At 7:30, Marissa arrived, placed her phone face down, and sat down. Nick closed his laptop and sat down next to her. Danny leaned back in his chair, looking at his parents in turn. "We're ready," Nick said. "Let's talk." "Okay," Danny said. "What about?" Nick started simple. "Sometimes adults decide to live in different houses. Mom and I made that decision. It's not because of you. You're not to blame for anything. We both love you, and you'll see us both." Marissa picked up. "You'll have 2 beds, 2 toothbrushes, and 2 sets of pajamas. School, baseball, friends it all stays. We'll tell you in advance which days you'll be with whom. Here's the schedule for next week," she said, placing a printout on the table with the days marked in plain font. Danny looked at the sheet carefully. "And the holidays," Nick replied. "We'll decide in advance and together. You'll be able to spend time with each of us. We'll come to an agreement. Will I be able to call my mom when I'm at your place, and you when I'm at my mom's?" "Of course," they both said at the same time. Danny was silent, then asked, "Did you have a fight?" Marissa said, "Adults have difficult conversations. We don't yell at each other. We resolve issues." "That's true. You don't need to get into the details of adults. One thing is important. We're here for you." Danny nodded, and Nick saw the tension leave his shoulders. "Can I take my baseball team poster to my mom's today?" he asked. "Yes, yes," said Nick. "I'll help you take it off the buttons." "And one more thing." Danny hesitated. "Can I have dinner at Mom's again tonight? Maybe there are cookies there." Marissa smiled. "There's one cookie. But first, you already ate Dad's soup, so the cookie comes after your teeth and in your pajamas. Okay?" The conversation lasted 15 minutes. It was simple and even. Nick didn't add any unnecessary explanations. Danny asked 2 more questions about training and homework for Thursday. They agreed on who would help on which days. When all was said and done, Nick stood up and helped his son carefully remove the poster. Marissa put his pajamas, toothbrush, and bedtime book in a bag. At the door, Danny hugged Nick tightly, like a child. "I'll call when I go to bed," he said. "I'm waiting," Nick answered. The house was quiet again. Nick poured himself some water and sat down at the table. Marissa stood by the door, as if hesitant to speak further, but she said it anyway. "He's holding up. Much of that is thanks to you." "We both have it," Nick replied. "Next, according to plan. A psychologist on Tuesday, a mediator next week." "I agree," she said. "And one more thing. I'll write HR a letter tomorrow about the transfer. If it doesn't work out, I'll look for a new position. I understand this is interfering with our family. I need to get out of this mess." "This is the right move," Nick said. Marissa nodded and left. At 9:20, Danny called, "Good night, Dad. The cookies were delicious." Nick laughed and said good night. Nick sat down at his laptop and wrote to Victor. The conversation with the kid went smoothly. It was Tuesday, the 3 of us. Issues regarding holidays and phone calls were resolved. Marissa is writing to HR about the transfer. I'm ready to schedule a mediator for Thursday or Friday. He sent it. The email delivered without delay. On Wednesday morning, the school sent out a reminder. 3rd grade project night starts at 6 o'clock in the gym. Please bring 1 dish for the table. Nick read the email in his car before work and immediately forwarded it to Marissa. "I'll get the macaroni and cheese." Danny asked, "Meet me at the school at 5:50? The reply came quickly. "Okay, I'll bring a fruit plate. Parking is by the north entrance." The workday was busy. At lunchtime, Nick called Victor briefly. The mediator confirmed a meeting for Friday, and they would send a basic agreement template by evening. Then Nick stopped by Lee's from HR. He got the EAP consultant's number in case he wanted to talk through the tension once or twice. He wasn't sure he'd go, but so be it. By 5, Nick was already putting a pan of mac and cheese in the oven, topped with a thin crust of breadcrumbs. He checked to see that Danny had a clean school sweatshirt with a logo, and they were on their way. In the car, Danny held a cardboard sign with the words salt and density written on it, the very experiment they were going to demonstrate. 2 glass cylinders, salt and fresh water, and a ball that rises and falls. Will Mom be coming separately? He asked, looking at the sign. Yes, we'll meet at the entrance, Nick said. Did you discuss with her in advance what you'd say at the stand? Yes, she said she'd be there, but I'd do the talking. Great. The parking lot was full. Near the north entrance, tables with the word potluck were set up, parents were bringing containers, and students were running around in t-shirts with their class numbers. Marissa was already waiting by the door, holding an aluminum pan with fruit and a film over it. She was wearing a simple dark cardigan and jeans. She was clearly trying to look neutral. Seeing them, she smiled at her son. Hey, champion, ready to show off? Ready, Danny replied, showing the sign. Nick smiled at Maris. Fruit's great, he said. I'll put the mac and cheese on with the rest. Will you help Danny set up the stand? Yes, sure. The gym was buzzing. Project tables lined the walls. How beans grow, stick bridges, sound waves. In the center line was a row of third-grade B. Nick placed a container on the communal table, picked up a plastic spoon, and labeled it Mac and Cheese Morgan's on masking tape. Someone set down a casserole, someone else a pasta salad. The air mingled with the smells of cheese, baked goods, and hand sanitizer. Danny and Marissa set up the cylinders and the sign. Nick arrived in time to see his son explain to the first parent who approached, salt water is denser, so the ball doesn't fall. Marissa stood half a step behind, not interfering. Nick noted this and nodded silently. Miss Garcia approached, holding a list of marks. Great serve, Danny, she said. You're holding your own. Parents, thank you for helping without going overboard. We're trying, Nick replied. Yes, Marissa added. He made it himself. We just found the cylinders. Gradually, familiar parents approached their table. Mary Ann shook Nika's hand. I heard you're having a busy spring. If you need a ride on Fridays, I can do it. Thanks, Nick said. We have a clear schedule now, but it wouldn't hurt to have some backup. Greg, a neighbor, stepped towards them with his son Trevor. The mac and cheese is amazing, he said. I recognize the crust. He nodded to Marissa. Good to see you. Likewise, she replied. The conversations remained neutral. Nick sensed people noticing that they were standing close, but not hugging, and that they were speaking calmly. He felt uncomfortable with this social geometry, but he held his ground, looking at his son, at the display, at the teachers. At 7, Miss Garcia announced that everyone could approach the communal table. Nick and Marissa exchanged a quick glance to see who would go with Danny to the table. Nick said, I'll get him a portion. Will you stand by the stand in case more come? Yes, Marissa said. Parents and children crowded around the table. Nick served Danny a couple of spoonfuls of mac and cheese, a slice of lasagna, and some fruit. For himself, a salad and bread. On the way back, the school psychologist, Mrs. Ellis, approached them. She knew about their visit on Tuesday. Good evening, she said. I'm glad to see you three. Hello, Nick replied. Thanks for the reminder, we used it. Danny's been very consistent today, she added quietly, so the child wouldn't hear. The key is to maintain predictability. We're holding on, Nick said. The school's principal, Mr. Paxton, appeared at the stand, a tall man with glasses and a well-trained voice. He congratulated the parents and thanked them for the food. Marissa tensed slightly when she heard his footsteps. Nick realized she was afraid of any questions, but Mr. Paxton only said, Well done. Great project. Danny, will you tell me about baseball tonight? Yes, Danny perked up. Family conversations flowed in waves. At one point, one of the mothers, Susan, a well-known, know-it-all type, approached the table. She glanced at Nick and Marissa. You guys are great. Stick together, she said with exaggerated kindness. Not everyone can do that. My sister was going through, well, a tough time. Nick felt the weariness rising inside him from this support with a subtext and calmly answered, "We have a child together and a shared schedule. The rest is not a school matter." Of course, Susan said quickly and went to the table with cupcakes. Marissa exhaled and said quietly, "Thank you." "Please," Nick replied. After eating, the children went back to their projects to look at each other. Danny led Marissa to the stick bridges and Nick to the earthquake tower, where a girl from a parallel class was shaking a table. "Dad, their tower didn't fall," Danny said. "Cool," Nick nodded. "See how they made the legs wider? That's why it holds." Then began a short, mini scene. Each group spoke about the project for a minute into the microphone. Danny delivered his 2 sentences confidently, without hesitation. Nick and Marissa clapped nearby, without exchanging glances. Nick noticed Miss Garcia nod to both of them, as if to say, "That's it." By 8 o'clock, everything was starting to wind down. Parents were packing away containers, children were running to and from their lockers. Nick caught Marissa in the hallway at the drinking fountain. "Let's discuss the handoff," he said. "It's Wednesday, and Danny's scheduled to spend the night at my place. You pick him up on Thursday after school. Friday morning is your day off, and the evening is my day off." "Yes," she replied. "He has practice tomorrow at 5:30. I'll drop him off and wait. I'll be back on Sunday at 6. Then you have a meeting with the mediator on Monday." "Yes, at 4. Nick looked at his phone. "And one more thing. Are you having a call with HR on Friday morning?" "I was already here today," Marissa said. "I submitted an internal request to transfer to another department. They'll respond next week. It's temporary. I'm working remotely so I can make the rounds of the common rooms and the coffee shop." "That makes sense," Nick said. They returned to the stand. Danny carefully drained the water from the cylinders into the sink by the utility room. Nick helped dry the table with paper towels. Marissa wrapped the sign in a clear folder. "Dad, can I try this experiment again at home?" Danny asked. "Tomorrow," said Nick. "It's too late today." The three of them walked out into the cool evening. The parking lot was half empty. 2 parents from their class stood near the north entrance, talking about the price of gas. Nick waved and helped Danny into the car. Marissa came closer. "Thank you for the evening," she said. "You held the line and I didn't interfere." "You weren't interfering," Nick nodded. "Same thing. I'll send confirmation of the transfer and the meeting with the mediator tomorrow," Marissa added. "Okay." At home, Danny took a shower and lay down with a book. Nick sat next to him on the edge of the bed. "Did you enjoy the evening?" he asked. "Yeah," Danny said. "I was a little nervous talking into the microphone, but it was fine afterward. And I saw Trevor, he was eating 2 of your mac and cheese." "You should have registered it as a like," Nick smiled. "Go to sleep. School is tomorrow." "Dad." Danny rolled onto his side. "When it's just the 3 of us like this, I feel calm. Will this happen often?" "Yes. Schoolwork, often the 3 of us." "We agreed," Nick said. Downstairs in the kitchen, Nick washed the pan and transferred the remaining mac and cheese to a container. He opened his laptop and wrote a short note to Victor. The school event went smoothly. There was some social noise, boundaries were maintained. Marissa requested a transfer. Friday is the mediator. He closed the laptop and poured himself some water. The phone blinked a message from an unknown number, then the signature, Eric Hunt. "Nick, this is Eric. I know this is inappropriate, but I want to say, I will not be coming near your house and will not be crossing paths with Danny. Work decisions are at the discretion of Marissa and HR. Please maintain a respectful tone." Nick froze. A thought flashed through his mind. Where did this number come from? And then he remembered it was on one of the old corporate newsletters where he'd been added as an emergency contact in case anything happened to Marissa while she was traveling. He sat down at the desk and started typing a reply, then erased it. Then he typed again. "Eric, thanks for the message. Keep your distance. Our family matters are out of your control. Don't write to me anymore. Nick. He reread it, sent it, and set the spam filter on the number. Nothing stirred inside him, neither relief nor anger. Just a check on the list. Boundaries set. At 10:20, Marissa called. Did Eric write to you? She asked immediately. I wrote. I replied briefly. I asked him not to write anymore. Okay, she said. I told him not to interfere. Friday started calmly, unhurriedly. Nick dropped Danny off at school and arrived at work an hour early. He wanted to finish a couple of tasks before the afternoon meeting with the mediator. The team was still arriving. He poured himself a coffee, opened a ticket with logs by date, and wrote a test. Andrew sent him a smiley face and said, I see a green run, keep it up. At 9:30, Nick received an email from Lee in HR, a quick reminder about the EAP and a list of local therapists if he wanted an in-person meeting. He thanked her and added the email to his resources folder. It was like a first aid kit in the trunk. He'd keep it. At 10:15, Marissa called him. I have a call with HR in 15 minutes and a separate one with Eric, she said. HR asked me to outline my safety framework at work. I'll tell them I'm requesting a transfer and that I'm working remotely for the time being. Okay, Nick said. Remember the simple formulations. Personal situation, minimizing interference, no complaint, just a request. I wrote it down, she replied. About Eric, I'll tell him that any work-related questions will have to be in writing and through his assistant while HR is reviewing the transfer. No face-to-face meetings. That's right, Nick said. Keep your tone businesslike. Less emotion, more process. Got it. I'll write later. The call ended. Nick glanced at his to-do list for the day and deliberately switched his attention to the code. He didn't want to get caught up in other people's conversations that he couldn't control. At 11 o'clock, he closed the ticket, sent the report, and caught himself breathing calmly. Marissa was on a video call with HR, and she'd set up her laptop in Kate's kitchen. Her notebook, a glass of water, and a printout of her executive summary lay nearby. Lauren from HR and the company lawyer were on the screen. Lauren spoke kindly and clearly. Marissa, your safety and the safety of the team are important to us. You submitted an internal transfer request. We're reviewing it. We're in a hybrid mode for the time being. If you have any details you're willing to share, we'll consider them, but there's no obligation. Thank you, Marissa said. I'm not comfortable discussing the details. Please minimize my interactions with Eric while the transfer is in progress. We can resolve work-related matters in writing and through an assistant. The lawyer clarified. Are you reporting harassment? No, Marissa said. This is a personal relationship that has led to a conflict of interest. I take responsibility for stepping down from my reporting line. Agreed, Lauren said. We'll arrange a temporary change in reporting. You'll report to the senior director of sales, not Eric. An assistant will route communications. Work meetings will be group meetings only. If anyone needs your expertise, please submit a written request in advance. The compliance department will send you a standard conflict of interest document. Please sign it. The transfer will take up to 2 weeks, depending on open positions. Okay, Marissa said. Thanks for the quick response. Let me remind you, you can take a couple of days off tow without explanation, Lauren added. If you need it, just ask. The call ended. Marissa felt a mixture of relief and shame in her stomach. She poured herself some water and took a couple of sips. Kate peered into the kitchen. How did it go? The rails are in place, Marissa said. The transfer is being reviewed. The temporary reporting is missing Eric. The rooms are missing him. Good. Next challenge? In 20 minutes with him. I want to discuss the boundaries. Keep it short, Kate reminded, and don't make excuses. Marissa nods. She took the call from Eric in the same kitchen. He appeared at the window, wearing a gray shirt against the backdrop of his home office. His voice was restrained. Marissa, he said, Lauren already wrote to me about the temporary reporting. I agree with all the restrictions. I wanted to say this in person. And again, I don't have contact with Nick, you know. I sent him one message yesterday and won't anymore. I saw it, Marissa said. Thank you for not doing it. I just want to discuss one work matter, he continued. A client in Portland asked for your presentation. I can email my assistant to forward it on. Write to your assistant, she nodded. Do you need rough slides and a summary from me? I'll send them to the general channel. Yes, that's enough. The pause lingered. Eric glanced away as if he wanted to say something personal, but then returned his gaze and said without further ado, I'll accept any HR decisions. If a transfer happens, I wish you luck in your new department. It's also my responsibility to ensure this doesn't impact your career any worse than it already has. Thank you, Marissa said. From here on, procedure. No personal comments. Accepted. They hung up. Marissa closed her laptop and rested her palms on the lid for another minute. Kate silently placed a cup of tea next to her. It was the right way to end the conversation. Meanwhile, Nick was having lunch in the cafeteria next to the office. He had the soup of the day and a salad. On the table lay his notepad with his plan for the meeting with the mediator. Finances clear, house mortgaged, car one car each, accounts general and operating, schedule 223, holidays alternate, summer camp 50-50. He wasn't going to bring up names or pasts, only what was affecting Danny's future. Andrew sat down across from him with a burger. How are you? He asked. I'm doing what I can, Nick replied. Marissa's discussing the transfer. They've set up work restrictions. It's good for everyone, Andrew said. When there are no intersections, there's less temptation to go into a trance. Aha, Nick nodded. The pick is at 4. I'll drive over so I can pick up groceries for the weekend. After lunch, Nick sent Lee a short, thanks for the list. She replied, hang in there, you're doing it right. These short messages were helpful because they were free of unnecessary emotion. At 4 o'clock, Nick arrived at the mediator's office. It was a small room on the second floor of a business center with a simple sign. In the reception area were a sofa, a parent's magazine, and bottles of water. The mediator's name was Rachel Canton. She was a woman in her 50s with short hair and a calm gaze. In the session room, there was a round table with notepads and pens on it. Rachel first spoke briefly with Nick. I split up the first meetings so everyone can be heard. No arguments, just the framework. Then comes the general session. Tell me your 3 main goals for today. A transparent 3-month budget, a quarterly schedule, and an agreement that no third parties are allowed near the child, Nick listed. Okay, she said. Anything else? Don't discuss the past. We're moving forward. Recorded. Half an hour later, Marissa arrived. Nick and Rachel nodded. The 3 of them sat at the table. Rachel spoke clearly. We're not looking for someone to blame here. We're writing the rules for the coming months. We're leaving any judgments at the door. We're keeping things brief, listening to each other, and not overlapping. Let's start with the budget. They went through the lines: mortgage, utilities, insurance, food, gas, childcare. Nick showed the spreadsheet, and Marissa added a couple of lines: orthodontist, summer camp in July. The amount in the operating account was split evenly. Rachel concluded, we'll fix it for the next 12 weeks. We'll review it every 2 weeks based on actual results. Agreed? Yes, they answered simultaneously. Next came the schedule. Rachel suggested mapping out school periods, practices, and weekends, alternating them. Nick noted that Wednesdays were more convenient for him because he had fewer meetings. Marissa said it was easier for her to work from home on Mondays and provide transportation. Rachel drew up a grid on paper and signed it off each week. It created a clear plan for the quarter. Holidays, Rachel said. You have Memorial Day and the 4th of July coming up. Shall we alternate? Yes, Nick said. Memorial Day is hers, July 4th is mine. Next year, it's the other way around. It fits, Marissa confirmed. Now it's a no third-party rule, Rachel said. The wording is, The child does not meet the parents' partners and is not present during meetings between the parents and their partners for at least 12 months, then subject to review by mutual consent. Do you agree? Agreed, Nick said. I agree, Marissa said. Rachel wrote a draft interim agreement and added clauses about school, doctors, and communication with relatives. She concluded, we have a conflict of interest at Marissa's work. I'm recording that a transfer is currently underway, minimizing contact with her manager for the time being. The family part and the work part are separated. Nick, is this important for you to know? Only to the extent that it affects Danny's stability, he replied. If Marissa changes departments and the schedule becomes more predictable, that's a plus. I'll let you know, Marissa said. The session lasted an hour and a half. At the end, Rachel printed out a draft. Nick and Marissa signed next to the note, temporary agreement. Rachel explained, this isn't a legal agreement, it's a working plan. We can prepare a version to submit to the judge next week if you'd like to formalize it. But this is often enough for people to get through the first few months. That's enough for us for now, Nick said. They walked out into the parking lot. The evening was clear. Marissa stopped at her car. Thank you for keeping your tone, she said, and for not dwelling on the past. I'm sticking to one thing. We have a son, Nick replied. The rest is logistics. Logistics and respect, she added quietly. I'll send HR confirmation of the transfer when I receive it, and I'll send it to you afterward so you know what my schedule will be. Okay, Nick said. They parted ways. Nick stopped by the store on the way. He picked up some groceries for the weekend. Chicken, vegetables, buckwheat, yogurt for Danny, and strawberries. A guy in a Mariners baseball cap was standing at the checkout, talking on the phone about the game. Nick signed in with his operating account card and email notification arrived, and everything was working. At home, he unpacked the groceries, opened his laptop, and texted Victor. We went over the budget, schedule, holidays, and the no third parties rule with the mediator. We signed the draft. Marissa is in HR. The transfer process has been launched, and the interim reporting has been passed over to the manager. I'm at peace. Victor replied, excellent. Next week, check on the implementation. If anything stalled, let me know. At 7:30, Nick picked Danny up from Marissa's. On the way, the boy talked about his school plans for reading day. At home, they had chicken dinner and played a board game. Before bed, Danny asked, Dad, will we have an overnight camp this summer? We'll discuss it. Most likely, yes, for one shift, Nick said. Mom and I were just discussing summer today. Fine. The night passed smoothly. On Saturday morning, Nick drove Danny to practice, then they stopped at the library. Nick picked up a book about family finances, Danny a comic book, and an illustrated encyclopedia. At the checkout counter, the librarian smiled. A good set for the weekend. It's suitable, Nick answered. That afternoon, Nick received a screenshot of a letter from HR from Marissa. Your transfer to the affiliate marketing department has been approved, effective 1st. Temporary arrangements remain unchanged until the transfer date. He replied, accepted. Good. This meant that at least the work part of their lives would become less unstable. That evening, while Danny was building a pillow fort, Nick texted Andrew, everything's going according to plan. The mediation went through, Marissa's transfer is at work. I'm planning a park and a barbecue on the little grill in the yard for Sunday. Andrew sent, if you need company, give me a shout. I'll bring some corn. Nick sat on the veranda, looking at his to-do list. Signed temporary agreement done. Open account done. Schedule checked. School informed. Marissa's job transferred. He checked off the boxes and added one line for next week. Check Danny's sleep habits at Mom's and mine. Pay attention to morning routine. This wasn't about control, but about the monitoring of systems that is familiar to him. The phone blinked a short message from Marissa. Thanks for today. I signed the document with Rachel. I'll pick up a copy from her on Monday and send you a scan. Nick replied, okay. On Monday morning, Nick dropped Danny off at school and headed downtown to the courthouse, where they were formalizing a standard temporary separation and custody agreement. Victor met him at the entrance. He was wearing a simple dark jacket and holding a folder of documents. Let's go over the details again, Victor said quietly. Joint custody, the 223 schedule, the no third parties rule, the budget through an operating account, the addresses and availability, it all matches Rachel's draft. Today, the judge is simply confirming that you understand what you're signing. I understand, Nick replied. Marissa arrived a minute later. She was wearing a modest suit, her hair pulled back. Kate was next to her, holding a notebook and a bottle of water. Marissa nodded. Good morning. Good, Nick replied. They were summoned to a small courtroom. The judge, a middle-aged woman, went through the formalities and asked questions one by one. Did the parties understand what they were signing? Was there any coercion? Were they aware of the consequences? Nick answered briefly and evenly. Marissa did the same. The judge signed and handed over copies. The whole thing took 12 minutes. In the corridor, Victor shook Nika's hand. From now on, we'll live by the rules. In 3 months, we can move on to the final agreement if you want. Got it, Nick said. Thank you. I'm nearby if anything happens, Victor added and left for his next appointment. Kate hugged Marissa and looked at Nick. If you need more boxes, let me know. I have some extra in the garage. Thank you, Nick nodded. They went their separate ways. Nick went to work, where the usual briefing awaited him. Andrew looked at him and wordlessly pushed the box of donuts closer. Ready? He asked quietly. Yes, Nick replied. We signed a temporary agreement. From now on, it's up to us. We're keeping up the pace, Andrew said, switching to discussing tickets. The day went by smoothly. Nick noted how well he was keeping up with his tasks: code, emails, short calls. At lunchtime, he went for a walk around the block around the office and wrote to Marissa. I'll scan a copy of the agreement this evening and put it in the general archive. I'll pick up Danny on Wednesday, as agreed. She replied, yes, and thanks for keeping things organized. That evening, Nick picked up Danny and took him to the supermarket. They got chicken breast, broccoli, and pasta as a side dish. At the checkout, Danny reached for the magazine stand. Dad, can I have a comic? One, Nick replied, and we'll also take a pack of stickers for the notebooks. At home, Nick showed his son a printout of the weekly schedule. It was lying in a drawer in the hallway. Look, Nick said. Monday, Tuesday for Mom, Wednesday, Thursday for me, Friday, Sunday, right now it's my turn. Next week, it's the other way around. Holidays, we alternate. See the markers? I see, Danny nodded. And where's the camp in the summer? We'll see on Saturday. You and I will go to the Summer Programs Center. We'll choose the tent or robotics shift. With tents, he perked up. Okay, let's check the dates. On Wednesday morning, Nick drove Danny to school and stopped at the market after lunch. He bought strawberries, new potatoes, and corn. The plan for the evening was simple: cook dinner and coordinate the weekend with Marissa over the phone. She texted first. HR confirmed the transfer effective first. The new manager is Mia Lynn. I know her from cross projects. The schedule is flexible. Nick replied, great, that will simplify the summer plan. On Thursday, the school sent out a sign-up for summer programs. Nick forwarded the link to Marissa and Andrew. He simply said, check out the robots, maybe you'll recommend them. Andrew replied, if you take the science experiments, I'll bring a water layer kit. Nick smiled. He marked his calendar for Saturday's trip to the camp fair at the local center. On Friday evening, she and Danny headed to the baseball field early. Nick brought a portable grill. He wanted to have a small barbecue in the yard after practice. Andrew joined them, bringing corn and lemonade. Marissa picked up her son after practice and stopped by for 10 minutes to pick up a couple of boxes of books from Nick that hadn't fit last time. They exchanged a few quick words at the gate. I'll have him back by 6 on Sunday, Marissa said. Yes, Nick confirmed. We're going to the camp fair on Saturday. Good choice, she replied and drove away. The barbecue was simple: corn, chicken, strawberries for dessert. Andrew talked about his favorite team. Danny talked about his run to second base. Nick listened, noticing his voice returning to its normal state. Neighbor Greg brought a couple of buns, said his wife was baking a pie on Saturday, and that he could drop by. Nick thanked him and made a mental note. The friendly little things he'd been missing had returned to the yard. On Saturday morning, Nick and Danny drove to the summer program center. The gym was lined with tables with banners: swimming, robots and code, national park camp, art and ceramics. Danny gravitated toward camp and robots. Nick asked short questions. Do you want an overnight stay or a day stay? An overnight stay, Danny said confidently. A fire and a tent. Then camp for one shift. Robots day, 2 weeks. Is that okay? Yes. They spoke with the coordinators and looked at the lists. A pediatrician's note was required for overnight stays. Nick made a note to call on Monday. The dates align with their schedules. Nick would take 1 week of overnight stays on his own, and they would split the 2 weeks of day camp between the two campers. Nick took a photo of the brochures and wrote to Marissa: overnight stays July 6-12, robots July 22nd, August 2nd. Look, I'll take the overnight stays, you take the robots? The answer came quickly: yes, it will do. Before leaving, they glanced at the camp safety table. The instructor was explaining the packing list. Danny gravely wrote down flashlight, sweatshirt, 2 sets of socks, and added baseball team poster. Nick smiled and said the poster wasn't required at camp. Sunday passed quietly. In the morning, Nick and Danny went to visit Grandma in the park and returned for lunch. After nap time, Danny packed his backpack for Mom's Day's pajamas, a book, a toothbrush, and his favorite figurine. At 6, Marissa arrived and got out of the car. By the way, she said, I signed a conflict of interest document with HR. The transfer is effective as of the 1st. I have 2 team meetings next week, no face-to-face contact. I'll upload the schedule to the shared calendar. Okay, Nick said. I'll make an appointment with the pediatrician for Danny tomorrow to get a certificate for camp. And I'll take him to the orthodontist myself on Thursday. He has a checkup. Thanks, Marissa nodded. I'll pick him up for practice on Friday, and then I'll bring you dinner. I'll make lasagna. Danny loves it. It will do. Danny hugged Nick, got into the car, and waved from the window. The car drove away. The yard grew quiet. Nick went up to the veranda, sat down with a notepad, and reviewed the week. Temporary agreement signed, HR transfer, camp dates and tasks, pediatrician call, orthodontist Thursday, budget audit Friday, operating account working. He checked off the boxes and wrote down a summer list: camp kit, flashlight, new backpack, repellent, sunscreen. These everyday items formed a coherent picture. On Monday, Nick went to the clinic, got the camp form and appointment date from the pediatrician. That evening, during his quiet time without Danny, he used the EAP contact for the first time, a short 40-minute video session. He told the counselor directly, I don't need to relive the past. I want to make sure I'm not missing important emotions that could backfire later. The consultant listened and asked simple questions about sleep, about irritation, about moments when he gets overwhelmed. Nick admitted that the most difficult moments are when he sees the 3 of them in old photos. They suggested a ritual: don't delete the photos, but make a rule of looking at them for no more than 5 minutes a day to avoid getting stuck. They also suggested breathing before difficult conversations, literally counting your breaths. Nick wrote it down and realized that this suited him: clear, practical ideas. On Tuesday, when Nick and Marissa visited Mrs. Ellis again, the psychologist asked Danny how he was sleeping, how his mornings were going, and what were the most difficult moments for him. Danny said, sometimes I wonder where my toothbrush is today, but I have 2 now, and it's convenient. And I also don't like it when Mom's phone rings when I'm talking. But Mom said she'll turn it off. I will, Marissa confirmed, looked at Nick and added, and sometimes yours rings when we're having dinner too. I'll set it to do not disturb, Nick said without offense. Mrs. Ellis praised them for their specificity. She also recommended a shared calendar for Danny in his room, where he marks off the days with a marker. Nick bought a magnetic board at the store, hung it on the wall by his desk, and gave his son a blue marker. He happily marked the days he had to practice. At the end of the week, Nick and Marissa met at Rachel's for a short check-in session. The mediator asked, "What works? What's slipping?" "The schedule and budget are working," Nick said. "The only thing that's holding me back is my habit of answering work messages during dinner. I'm fixing that." "I have to get ready in the morning," Marissa admitted. "I underestimated the traffic. I'll leave 10 minutes early." "Add quiet hours to the document," Rachel suggested. "Phone-free dinner, a morning buffer in the schedule. And note that you'll review it in a month." They finished writing 2 points and left. In the parking lot, Marissa said, "Thank you for not pressuring me. It's easier for me to work when everything is scheduled." "I'm used to it," Nick replied. "When I have a list, my head is calmer." On Saturday, Danny had his first game of the season at the stadium. His parents gathered in the stands. Nick brought a folding chair and a bottle of water. Marissa came from the other side of the field, carrying a small cooler full of ice. Andrew waved to Nick from the opposite bench. The game was noisy, the kids were running, the coach shouting instructions. Danny hit a medium-powered single and reached first base. Everyone in the stands cheered equally, but Nick caught his son's eye. His eyes were searching for his parents, and seeing them both, he smiled. Nick caught himself thinking, "We're doing this." After the game, the three of them carried the bag of equipment to the car. Marissa said, "I'll take him for ice cream and bring him to you by 6. Is that okay?" "Yes," said Nick. "I'll just put the chicken in the oven." Danny asked, "Dad, can I take your old flashlight to camp in July?" "If we replace the batteries, it's possible," Nick answered. He returned home in an even mood. That evening, on the veranda, he opened his notebook and wrote, "We are the new parents of one child. We keep things in order. We are neither friends nor enemies. We are adults doing our job." He concluded and put his pen down. Later, when he closed the kitchen window and turned off the light, his phone blinked. A short photo from Marissa Danny with ice cream and a cardboard crown from the cafe. Beneath the picture was a single word, "Happy." Nick replied, "See you at 6. They pulled up at 6. Danny ran onto the porch, smelling of vanilla. Marissa lingered for a second. "Nick," she said, "I know there's going to be a lot of bureaucracy going forward, but right now, thank you for the way you're handling this." "It's for him," Nick repeated. "It's easier for everyone." She nodded and left. Nick closed the door and put the chicken on the table. Danny sat down, picked up a fork, and looked at his father. "Dad, do we have regular school and regular practice tomorrow?" "Yes," Nick said. "Everything is going according to plan." He topped up the sauce, gave his son a piece, and poured water. They ate and talked about the game. The house was quiet. Ahead lay July with camp, August with robots, school fairs, and new schedules. There were no big words, no attempts to overturn the past. There was a life in which schedules and simple agreements kept the family connected. That was enough for them now. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.